Welcome to Murder.
And everything else.
My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl, and Joy and I are two old friends who are going to chit-chat about murder and everything else.
It's not Sunday.
It is not. Oh my God, I don't know what to do.
So guys, we're recording in the middle of the week, which is so weird. It's like being, that dream that you sometimes have where you're wandering around down the street and you look down and you realize you have nothing on. That's what it feels like.
You know what's funny? I do not have a lot of naked dreams.
Really?
Yeah, even in my dreams, I don't want to see myself naked.
I have a lot of naked dreams, and I also have a lot of where I'm pregnant and breastfeeding and have to feed 5 quintuplets and their diapers are all poopy and I don't have a diaper bag, and all of a sudden my milk dried up and then I see something shiny like George Clooney. I have a lot of dreams like that.
Wow. Okay. Well, that sounds like my toilet dream a little bit. But the other dream I have that's a stress
Smart.
dream. Trying to feed 5 babies with 2 breasts and having poopy diapers. I have dreams sometimes, because I used to be a dancer and I dream that I'm in a show, whether it's being filmed or it's alive, and I don't know the choreography. That's always a fun one. And I step out on stage with everybody and I don't know the choreography.
And they're all 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're all jazz hands, jazz hands.
Yes. They're like, who's that Asian lady? And then they do the hook. You know how they used to do in what's that? The Apollo Theater. Remember they used to have those comedians on, and then somebody would come out with that big hook and take them off if they sucked. So that would be me.
I love that. And they would also bring the broom out and sweep them off. That was so funny.
Yeah.
And they're taking out the trash.
Yeah. Oops. Sorry.
Well, we have a disclaimer, and that is, remember, this is a humorous and sometimes satirical and often sad and grown-up podcast. So please do not let the small children listen in.
Mm-hmm. Do not.
I also have some retractions I have to make this week.
Ooh.
So here we go. I'm going to just run through them really quickly. John Bunyan wrote Pilgrim's Progress in 1628, not in the 1300s, as I said last week. And it was called the Slough of Despond, not Despondence. And then Gabe told me it's not pronounced Slough, it's pronounced Slough. But I took issue with that because I said Slough is spelled S-L-E-W. But he said that in England it's pronounced Slough, and in the United States pronounced Slough. So whatever, call it whatever you want. Mm-hmm. Also, he said I did not accurately represent why he no longer eats meat. So sorry about that. And finally, the ring I got at the beach has not been authenticated as a Tiffany's ring, but if it's not, it is a very good replica.
And it was only $6, right?
And it was only $6.
I'd rather pay $6 for a good replica.
Right, and it's sterling silver. So come on.
No, I love sterling silver. Well, no, wait, now you have my curiosity piqued. First of all, Slough of Despondence sounds better than Slough of Despond. It sounds weird. It sounds like it's cut off. But now we all must know what it was that made Gabe no longer eat meat.
I know, right? So if you guys want to know, you have to listen to future podcasts so that I can share that information with you. Ha.
Okay.
Teaser.
All right. I'm just going to text Gabe after this. Okay.
Right. So Cheryl, you want to roll into our highs and lows? Because I bet you got some goodies.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what to pick. I have a couple of them.
What?
Yeah, I do have. Okay, I have 1 and 2 low. Okay,
you can always fall back on breastfeeding your dogs.
Yeah. Okay, I have. It's a head to kind of a head to head with 1 and 2. So I have 1 and 2 in my mind. Pick a number.
I always was partial to number 2 because everybody likes to go number 2, so I'm gonna pick 2.
Well, I think it's been a while since I talked about my dogs, or has it? But we have a real Cujo in the house, and his name is Jet. So I've spoken about his aggression issues prior to this recording. But, I got Jet from a shelter when he was probably already a year old, and he's always had aggression issues towards other dogs and people. So basically everything.
Cats, birds,
several people. And when I adopted him, I said I'm committing to this no matter what issues he has. And boy, does he have issues, and did he have issues.
Boy.
And I have dealt with it for 13 and a half years, and my lovely husband has been kind enough to go on this journey with me. But I think it's gotten to the point where he, not my husband, but Jet, needs to have some serious medication. So when I go to the vet today, I have to ask. I looked it up too. There is some specific medication for doggy dementia. I'm not sure that's what he has, but I'm going to tell them, you need to give me something that's gonna he needs to be a different dog. Before I wanted him to be himself, and just take the edge off a little. So I was giving him Prozac, and that is not helping anymore. He's just unpredictable. I feel like he's becoming unstable. And so I feel bad, but I'm going to have to give him something strong. Like, do they do doggy lobotomies or something?
I don't know. I think he needs to go to a faith healer.
Yeah, maybe, something. But I'm not giving up on him yet, people. I am not giving up on him yet. I mean, we're making adjustments. He's, before I used to keep Jet and Callie together and Bodhi separate so that Jet wouldn't attack Bodhi. And while Jet has attacked Callie in the past, over the years, it's increased tenfold. The other day he attacked her twice in one day, bit me in the face. Anywho, so I have got to do something about it. So that's my little I'll hopefully they have something strong enough, because I don't want to put him down. It's not at that point yet, but it's definitely at the point where we have to take a serious step towards something, because we can't live like this. So that's my low. And then my high is that you're still alive. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. I am not kidding, Joy. I didn't tell you earlier because you were, on your way to Costco. And I know that takes some mental preparation because I hate the parking lot at Costco. Anyway, so I texted Joy yesterday, everybody, asking her when she wanted to record today. And usually you respond right away. And sometimes all of us don't respond right away, but you never responded the whole day. And my mind goes to, she's dead. She has gotten in an accident. No! I'm serious.
Because take the wheel.
Because that could happen. You could have gotten in a serious accident, been laid up in the hospital, or worse, in the morgue. And how would I know that, right? And especially
told you, Gabe would have reached out. Hello.
Well, I don't know if he would have right away. It's probably not the first thing on his mind.
He's got a box that says, you can only open it and distribute these things amongst my friends. And like, Tara's gonna get my diaries, and you're gonna get my jewelry, and like, there's stuff.
Who's getting your shoes?
Well, probably Chloe, because she wears the closest size to me. And then she can give them away. You wear like a child size. You're like,
oh, I wear 6.5 now. Although when I was dancing,
children sizes.
No, when I was dancing though, it was like a 5.5. So
whoa, what happened? As soon as you stop dancing, you turn into a hobbit.
Yeah, well, you know what happens is your dance shoes, you can't wear them like street shoes. They're a little bit snug right? Because
Oh.
you can't be kicking your foot and have it fly off. So
Is that why
it's
dancers
like,
have such gnarly feet?
yeah, well, yeah, ooh, ballet dancers on point shoes, yikes. But it's like the Chinese binding of the feet. It's kind of like that with dance shoes.
Oy
So
vey.
when I stopped dancing, yeah, no, my feet got bigger. But don't parts of your body get bigger? Don't they say your ears are always grow or still grow, or your nose, or
Well, I
mine?
can
I know
tell
mine is
you,
my butt.
after having had, let's see, I have been pregnant that I know of 3 times, and I have 2 children. I can tell you there's a lot of things that got bigger. I'm not going into detail, but whoo, girl,
We'll
I could
save that
write
for another
I I
episode.
mean, I could write a whole, like, inflatable, deflatable, like, storybook about
Uh,
what happened. Like, I
oh,
remember emailing a friend because she wanted to know everything about, like, the process of giving birth from the minute you get into, like, the robe at the hospital or the minute you get out of the car and get into the, like, wheelchair or whatever, and I did. It took me, like, 20 days, and I wrote the whole thing out. It was so long, and she said she never, like, laughed and cried so much in her life, but it was, like, very graphic, but also, like, very true. Like, one person came in and said they had to put something in to ripen my cervix, and I was like, "Where's my cervix, and why do you look like you're 21?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm gonna need to see some ID." And he had, like, a badge on, and of course, he had scrubs, and Gabe's like Gabe looked at me and he's like, "Joy?" And I was like, "I don't know, he could be a janitor."
right. He could have gotten that from the costume store. Um,
Right, I'm like, "Plus he looked like he was 12." I'm like, "I'm not
I
letting
know.
you ripen any cervix anywhere." I was like, "Come
It's
on."
very disconcerting when you see the doctor walks in the office and they look like Doogie Howser. It
Right?
really is. But when you think about it, like if they're in their 30s, they could be 30, right? And they could still look really young. 30s is young, but
Right.
still that's still time, you know, the timeline works out for them to be a
But on
doctor
the
at
flip
30
side, you also don't want the doctor to walk in and be like 90, because then you're like, "They're gonna
with a
drop dead."
walker.
He's like, "Don't worry about me, I've got shaky hands." Ew.
Terrible. Okay, well, anyway, so these things can happen. If
Mhm.
somebody like you could get in an accident like that, anything could happen, and that's where my mind goes. And I wanted to yesterday, like later on in the evening, say to you, "Are you okay?" But I was like, "No, I'm not going to be that person." So instead, I worried about it all night until I texted you first thing this morning, going, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, but it
And
was
you
like
said,
it
"Yeah."
must have been like 5 AM for you. I'm like,
I
"What
know
are you
because
doing
I
up?"
was worried.
But you know what's funny is I woke up at 5 o'clock, 5:30 this morning too. I don't know what's up. And I yawned all through the day until until, yeah, now. And now I'm all, like, pepped up. I'm
Yeah.
all amped up.
Well,
So
you're
no more
ready.
yawning.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's my high is that you are alive and well.
Yay.
And
And
then you know, I'm
that
sorry,
should be
Joy,
that should be my high too, is that I'm alive.
but you know what went through my mind? I was like, if she's dead, I am not continuing this. And
What?
I know that this sounds like a joke, but I'm telling you, I was in the kitchen and I was getting out like a fork to eat, and all these thoughts were running through my head, and I'm like, if Joy died, I'm this. That's it for the podcast. Like I shouldn't even be thinking about
What?
that.
But then what about, like, our upcoming giveaway? And what about, like, I mean, the ads that have been recorded? All you'd have to learn is how to edit. That's it.
No,
Like,
who's gonna say like, subscribe, and listen? Not me.
right. Follow, rate.
Laughter is the best medicine after
After
all.
all.
Anyway, what's your high and low?
Well, my high, I mean, I gotta tell ya, I got a massage today, and that was gonna be my high. But when I came home and checked the mail, Nordstrom is having an anniversary sale, and I got the magazine flyer in the mail with the glossy pictures. And
With the shiny pictures.
so I'm scrapping the massage for the flyer. I mean, I gotta tell you, first of all, like, I am I am here for the bright colors. Have you
They are
noticed
so
that we're
pretty.
making like an 80s return with like
Mm-hmm.
bright colors? And I'm here for it.
Me
I
too.
really am enjoying that. And
Mm-hmm.
also the chunky heel. I went out and bought a chunky heel last year. I mean, like a platform, like chunky, like, welcome to the Apollo, circa 1975.
Mm-hmm.
I've only worn them once because I'm pretty sure I'm going to fall down the next time I do. But nonetheless, I bought them anyway. So yeah, it's kind of like a double, like it's like a tiered high, and it's the anniversary sale flyer and the massage. And I just have to say, going into the massage, first of all, the massage therapist is like 8 months pregnant. So there's something about like her energy and the fact that she's like carrying a baby and she's very maternal, and she's like in that period of time in her life where she's you know, she's she has more hormones coursing through her body. I don't know what it is. But about 20 minutes in the massage, I woke myself up because I did one of those like snort talk things that you do like in the middle of the night where you're all, huh? And then and then she goes, "I'm sorry." She's all, "Did I touch something that was sore?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, I was falling asleep." And then she had me roll over and she's like massaging my feet. And there's something about my hands and my feet being massaged that it's almost like giving me like a vitamin B shot. It just gives me like all this like energy.
Yeah.
And I literally started talking and I couldn't stop talking. And I was yawning all through the day because I got up at like 5 in the morning, which by the way, that's my low, or 5:30. And um and I haven't yawned since. It's like all of a sudden I'm super amped up from this massage, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But like it's like I tapped into all her energy, and I know that people are gonna roll their eyes, and I know people are gonna be like, "Oh, she's into all that hoo-ha and energy crap." But I gotta tell you, girl, like it really I am so on board with body work and energy and massages. Anything that helps me feel good, I am on board with.
Well,
Just
yeah,
in truth, whatever.
I love massages. So, do
Yeah.
you believe in Reiki?
Well, she's a Reiki practitioner,
Oh,
and
that's probably why
yeah,
she.
and she also sometimes will do some like energy work when she's working on me, and she always comments on how good my energy is. And what's funny is when I came back from my mom's funeral last year, by the way, it's almost been a year. It'll be a year next month. So that'll be my low next month. I'll be a train wreck that
Mm,
will scrape me off the floor. But anyway, um, when I came back, I went to her like as soon as I was able to like, like leave the house without like falling apart.
mhm.
And she said, she goes, "Your energy is really low." She's like, "Is there anything going on?" I didn't even tell her. Like
Wow.
I just wanted to make sure, and then I like told her like what was going on. And she's like, "Oh," she's like, "Yeah, I could really sense that." Now, it could be totally like, I'm just going to say like there are people I know who I sleep very close to every night who
Who
tends to
shall
think,
remain nameless?
who shall remain nameless, who he tends to think that this is not like, that it's mostly made up, or it's like the psychic network, where they're like, why couldn't they see that they were going to go bankrupt? And why is that lady pretending she has a Jamaican accent? And why did Dionne Warwick do their infomercials? Anyway, um, remember
These
that,
are good questions.
right? But I have to tell you, like, so just doing body work with this lady, and through this process of like, yeah, the work that I've done like in the last year, I feel like we've really helped each other. Let's just put it that way. Like, but she really is. I mean, otherwise, what would explain like me feeling all amped up and peppy, and I haven't yawned at all, and I'm just feeling generally great. And when I went in there, I was yawning. I really struggled this morning to like put one foot in front of the other. I ate like maybe 2 bites of like a lackluster lunch. I had a horrible experience leaving the massage at a Wendy's because I was waiting for something for my kid and they got everything wrong. And then I had to go in the store and like, it was just a debacle.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And and then all the food seemed stale when I just anyway, I mean
not at fine
what
dining like
I mean
that.
but what can you expect, right? It's Wendy's. But anyway, that all aside, I will tell you that like, I don't know. She's tapped into something that's really, really special. And I think part of it is that she's pregnant. So,
I believe
anywho,
that. I believe it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know
It,
what? When I was pregnant, I felt like I was, who was didn't Zeus have a wife? I felt like I was the woman giving birth to the earth. No, seriously, I felt like, I don't know. I don't know if there's even an explanation for it, but I felt maternal. I felt fertile. I felt glowy. I felt sweaty and stinky. And I also felt like I was like some kind of like mother earth person. Like I
mhm,
was a extension of all things good on the earth.
mhm.
And it sounds really crazy, but like I would go to yoga class and I mean I was like fat as a big old tub of lard. I had stretch marks from God, where to who. And I was smelly. I was like oozy. I mean, everything was just a hot mess. I had like chin pubes popping out everywhere. I had a pubic hair that sprouted out of my left arm.
Well, you know what? I've never been pregnant, and I feel like it's an incredible a process and an incredible thing. What's the word I'm looking for? But it really is a miracle. When you think about it, it's really a miracle. So I imagine that you have like these, amazing feelings of being connected to
Yeah.
the earth. Yeah.
Did I say my low?
Uh,
Oh, the getting up at 5:30. I
yeah.
did. So my low is that one of my kids is house sitting. I think it's great. It's good for her, et cetera, et cetera. Apparently, I can no longer sleep proper sleeping hours because one of my little chickens is out from under the nest. So I'm hoping that she gets back to the nest soon so that I can get a proper night's sleep because this earth muffin needs a little more than 4 hours of sleep a night because they're leaving again next week. I feel like I'm just like doomed to stay awake all night. So anyway, if so when you wake up at 5 a.m., just know I've been up for hours. Anyway,
Oh,
that's my low. And we are just, I mentioned it earlier, but I need to tease the giveaway. Guys, to our regular listeners and our silent listeners that choose not to subscribe, if you've gotten this far in the podcast, bravo. Okay? Pat yourself on the back because the comment about the pubic hair on my arm, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be like, I'm not listening anymore. That's it. But if you've made it past that, we are going to announce a giveaway that we're going to do. And it's going to be like a little trivia game. It's going to be a weekly giveaway. And we are going to launch that hopefully within the next week or two. I don't have all the specifics, but the specifics I do have is that we're going to have a giveaway. So you're going to want to make sure that if you are a silent listener, maybe you need to subscribe so that you can be on the up and up when we announce the giveaway. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm just teasing it. So there. So all 65 of you,
you've been teased.
you've been teased. That's right. Just like a 70 or 1970s hairdo. It's teased up. Get, get you some
Oh.
get you some Aquanet and a rat tail comb. Anyway,
Boy, what they did back in the day.
we
Okay,
we are heading back to murder
to
this weekend
murder.
and we're turning it over to Cheryl, murder extraordinaire. You notice I didn't say murderer extraordinaire.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Cheryl has an amazing presentation for all 65 of y'all. So buckle up.
Buckle up. Hold on to your butts. Okay, I just want to add a disclaimer right now that this is about child abuse. So fair warning, okay? And murder. So I mean, it's just very, very awful. So I just want to warn you. So these, what we're going to talk about today is the Hart Family Murders. My sources for this was the YouTube channel called This Is Monsters, Wikipedia, News One, and ID Crime Feed. So Jennifer Hart and Sarah Gengler met while both were attending Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. Both were majoring in elementary education. Jennifer had grown up in Huron, South Dakota, and Sarah was from Big Stone City, South Dakota. When Sarah graduated in 2002, Jennifer quit school. They claimed to have lost friends when they came out of the closet as a lesbian couple. They moved to Alexandria, Minnesota. They both began working for the same retailer. They bought a house and Sarah changed her last name to Hart. In 2004, the women started fostering a 15-year-old girl who goes by the name Lee. In a 2018 interview with the Seattle Times, Lee recalls being placed with Sarah and Jennifer in the summer before her junior year in high school. She says the first 6 months went well. They kept busy with activities that she had never done before, like camping and going to amusement parks. Lee says she enjoyed living with the couple in their 2-story home with their dog and several cats. Sarah and Jennifer ask Lee if she would like to stay with them until she turns 18 years old, and she agrees. Sarah and Jennifer begin preparing to adopt a group of children who are all siblings. The couple traveled to Texas to meet the first set of 3 children they were going to adopt. They came home and showed Lee the pictures of the children. 1 week before the children were scheduled to arrive at their home, Sarah and Jennifer dropped Lee off at a therapy appointment and never returned. The therapist informed Lee that she was going to live with another foster family. That family picked her up, took her home, and all of her belongings were already at the house. Sarah and Jennifer, so they had planned it. Isn't that awful?
Dude, I can't even talk about foster care system. It makes me so crazy. And also, I know it's a podcast for another day, but like I mean, I have a very close connection to the foster care system. So I can't even.
Well, this is, well, like I said, hold on to your butt because this is about the foster system, adoption system. Sarah and Jennifer claimed that Lee did things like eat out of the garbage can, and they also claimed Lee was suicidal and they didn't want her negative energy around their newly adopted kids. Just terrible, terrible how they dealt with that. Sarah and Jennifer Hart were planning to adopt a total of 6 children, 2 sets of 3 siblings. There are questions as to why such a young couple were allowed to adopt so many children in a relatively short amount of time. The truth is they shouldn't have been. The records are sealed, but the agency was known to have a history of violations and not properly conducting home studies for pending adoptions. Abigail, born 2003, Hannah Jean, born 2002, and Marcus, born 1998, were adopted by the Harts from Colorado County, Texas. The placement came on March 4, 2006, and they were adopted that September. In June 2008, they adopted 3 additional children, Sierra Maya, born 2005, Devontae Jordan, born 2002, and Jeremiah, born 2004, originating from Houston. Sarah continued to work as the manager in a department store, while Jennifer stayed home with the kids. Friends and family of the couple say that when they visited, the children never spoke. One relative said Jennifer was extremely strict. They said if the kids did something Jennifer felt was wrong, she would snap her fingers at them and tell them to get in the corner, no food for you. The same relative said that anyone who questioned her parenting would be cut off. In 2009, Jennifer, Sarah, and all of the children went to Connecticut, where the couple officially married. In March of that year, the Harts sent an email to family members announcing they were planning on expanding their family even further. Turns out Sarah was attempting to get pregnant through IVF. How does this young couple with 6 kids have money for IVF? Reports have come out claiming the women made a hefty profit from the Black children. Oh, they were all Black. I guess you didn't say that before. All the kids are Black. San Antonio Express News reports the Hart women likely received more than $270,000 from the state of Texas to help care for the children, and the state paid Jennifer Hart monthly adoption subsidies for her children over the past decade. Hart got nearly $1,900 each month. Most families who adopt children out of the foster care from Texas get monthly payments that range from $400 to $545 per child to help cover care costs until the child turns 18. And this is back then, so I'm sure people make more money now. And then in July, Jennifer sends another email that the baby didn't make it. In 2008, while the family was living in Minnesota, a teacher observed bruises on Hannah's left arm and was told she had been hit by Jennifer with a belt. Within months, all 6 children had been pulled out of the public school system for a year. In 2010, Abigail said that she had owies on her back and stomach and stated that she felt threatened by the Harts, who had beaten her and held her head in cold water over a penny they assumed had been stolen. When authorities became involved, all children claimed that they had been spanked constantly and deprived of food. Sarah took responsibility for the abuse, pled guilty to assault, and was sentenced to community service for a year. 1 year later, Hannah reportedly told a school nurse that she had not eaten all day. Sarah claimed that Hannah was merely playing the food card and recommended that she just be given water. Soon afterward, all 6 children were taken out of public schools and were homeschooled from then on. But do you know what she means? It says Sarah claimed that Hannah, so Hannah's the daughter, one of the daughters, was merely playing the food card.
Well, she probably was saying that because coming from foster care, she, that was one of the things, that because the other thing is, I did read a little bit about this case, like right around when, um, when this happened, and then there was more, they started piecing together all of the different things that had happened, like all of like them pulling them out to homeschool them, which I got to tell you another like I'm sure there are great homeschooling parents out there, but this shines a really, really, really bad light on people who homeschool their children and then are very secretive about what they're doing because they don't feel like the government has any right peering in and seeing what's happening. But here's a perfect example of a bunch of kids who somebody should have stood up and been like, what's happening in this home?
Oh God, yeah.
So, it's like I remember, the parents, the moms would always go back to, well, these kids are troubled, these kids are this kid, so if and if you build trust with, you know, unfortunately, all I have to say is this kid is a product of the foster care system.
Mm-hmm.
Foster care is no different. And if they've been shuttled from placement to placement to placement,
So awful.
there's gonna be food insecurity.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So after Sarah's probation was up, the family moved to Westland, Oregon. They moved into a ranch house that had chickens and goats and that the children would take care of. While living there, someone made a report that the Hart children looked malnourished. Authorities opened an investigation and interviewed family and friends about how the children were treated. Sarah and Jennifer were described as harsh disciplinarians who forced their children to raise their hands before speaking and were not even allowed to wish each other happy birthday. Interviews with the children, yeah. Interviews with the children didn't turn up any examples of abuse, and the authorities were not able to conclude that the Harts were guilty of any abuse. During this time, Jennifer kept up a Facebook page showing an active and happy family. They showed pictures and videos of the family on road trips and at festivals. There is a video of Devonte hugging one of the music performers at one of these festivals. He is holding on to the man and crying for a very long time. Did you see this video?
No, I didn't. And I probably wouldn't be able to watch it. It would probably be too disturbing.
I mean, he is hanging on to that man, and it goes on for so long that the crowd starts, they start going, you can hear them saying, oh, because it's very touching. But when you're watching it and knowing what happens, how this all turned out, it was probably a cry for help.
Oh
It's
yeah,
very
absolutely.
sad. The women used these children, especially Devontae, as a prop to display their political opinions. These opinions were extremely pro-love and kindness, though they sadly weren't showing any of that to the children when no one was watching. On November 25th, 2014, the Harts attended a protest in downtown Portland. The grand jury had decided not to indict the police officer who shot and killed Michael Brown. Devontae was wearing a sign that said "Free Hugs." An officer approached him and asked him if he could have one. A freelance photographer captured the moment. Devontae is again crying as he hugs the officer. This photo goes viral and the family starts receiving a lot of attention. TV shows were asking to do interviews with Devontae. Jennifer refused, claiming she was protecting Devontae's privacy. Jennifer claims they received death threats and they needed to move out of the area. Authorities said there was no evidence of these death threats, but more than likely, the attention was unwelcome, as they like to keep their family locked behind closed doors away from prying eyes. In 2017, the family moved to Woodland, Washington. This home was on more than 2 acres of land. There were no neighbors nearby. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
Okay. The closest neighbors were Bruce and Dana DeKalb. They claimed the Hart family never came outside and always had the blinds closed. Ooh, red flag. In August of 2017, at 1:30 a.m. in the morning, Hannah jumped out of a second-story window of the Hart home and ran to the DeKalb's home. Bruce was awoken by someone knocking on the door and went to answer. When he opened the door, Hannah begged him to help her, claiming, "They're racist and they abuse us." She would have been about 14 years old at the time, but the DeKalbs thought she was closer to 6 or 7 because she was so skinny.
Ugh.
Jennifer showed up and took Hannah back home. And the next day, the entire Hart family, showed up at the DeKalb's house to apologize for the incident. Jennifer explained that the children sometimes acted out because they were all, quote, unquote, drug babies. Hannah gave the DeKalbs a handwritten note that what she had said the night before was all a lie. When Dana asked to speak with Hannah alone, Jennifer would not allow it. Jennifer said, "We do everything as a family." The DeKalbs initially didn't want to get involved, but Dana's father was worried about the children. He called 911 a few days later. He reports that he thinks they are being abused, and tells the 911 dispatcher what happened with Hannah showing up at the DeKalb's door asking for help, and how the Harts came back with the entire family to apologize and that the kids looked like they were scared to death. He tells the dispatcher his son-in-law doesn't want to get involved, but the more he sits on it, the more he just can't live with it. He says he even thinks the children may have been kidnapped. He says he's very concerned and believes they are in serious danger. The authorities do nothing. A few months later, Devontae started showing up at the DeKalb's house asking for food. Bruce would give him food. Devontae would ask that Bruce not tell his mother. Devontae later came back with a wish list of items such as peanut butter, fruit, bagels, and cured meats. He asked them to put it in a box and leave it by a section of the fence so Jennifer and Sarah wouldn't see it. After this happened about 10 times, Dana reported it to Child Protective Services. A CPS worker visited the Hart house and, after no one answered the door, left their card in the door. The following day, Saturday, March 24, the DeKalbs noticed that the GMC Yukon, usually parked next door, was gone. Sarah Hart had texted her coworkers at 3 a.m. and told them she was too sick to come to work, but she was a no-show at work the next 2 days, so her coworker called 911 for a welfare check. No one knew it then, but the Harts, perhaps fearing that authorities would uncover abuse and neglect, decided to once again leave their home as they had in Minnesota and Oregon. As the 8 members of the Hart family drove south along Highway 1, there would be no stopping for group photos or lengthy Facebook posts about the many joys of family life. Instead of looking for a new town and a new home to settle in, the Hart tribe was headed for a different, sinister destination. On March 26, 2018, a German tourist reported seeing a GMC Yukon lying on its roof at the bottom of a 100-foot cliff. Both Jennifer and Sarah's bodies were inside of the vehicle. The bodies of Marcus, 19 years old, Abigail, 14, and Jeremiah, 14, were thrown a few hundred yards from the wreckage. They were all dead. 2 weeks later, Sierra's body was recovered from a beach north of the cliff. She was 12 years old. A foot inside of a shoe washed up on shore shortly after. A DNA test revealed it was 16-year-old Hannah. The body of 15-year-old Devonte has never been found. Ugh. After analyzing data from the vehicle's computer, it has been determined that Jennifer pulled the Yukon about 70 feet away from the cliff. She then floored the gas to about 20 miles an hour before leaving the cliff. Evidence showed she had not touched the brakes. Toxicology reports determined that Jennifer Hart had alcohol in her system above the legal limit and that Sarah and two of the children had taken antihistamines that caused drowsiness. No one in the car was wearing a seatbelt.
Ugh.
A look at their mobile devices showed that Jennifer had Googled, "Can 500 milligrams of Benadryl kill a 120-pound woman?" She had also Googled suicide, no-kill shelters, and is death by drowning relatively painless, and how long does it take to die of hypothermia while drowning in a car? When authorities searched their home, there was nothing suspicious, but there was also no evidence of personal items for the children. The room that was shared by all of the kids, they were all in one room, had no personal items in it, and the house contained only a few board games and library books. One of the officers said it didn't look like children lived there. Animals were picked up off the property, but no one knows what they did with their dogs. We can only hope that is why Jennifer Googled no-kill shelters. 9 months after the horrific crash that killed the 8 members of the Hart family, many questions remain. Was the decision by Jennifer Hart to kill herself and her family a spontaneous one, or had it been planned when they hastily drove away from their home in Woodland? Was Sarah Hart a willing conspirator in the crash, or did she not realize what her ultimate fate would be? Jennifer Hart had always been the dominant figure in their relationship, so maybe Sarah accepted her destiny and went along with the plan. As investigators continue to try to unravel this great mystery, they may realize that some questions will never be answered, and that many of the answers washed out into the Pacific when the Yukon, carrying the 8 members of the Hart family, plummeted into the ocean.
That is so sad.
There's so much in this.
There's so much to unpack, but there's a lot to unpack here. I will say that the first thing I want to address is Sarah and um
Jennifer.
yeah, Jennifer and Sarah's relationship. So Jennifer was the more dominant person, and one of the things that I've learned about like abusive relationships, which I do believe they had to have had because the what they perpetrated on these children was abuse, is that in these situations, the person looks for somebody else to help them and be who is complicit in the abuse. Abuse doesn't happen, in a vacuum. So like in other words, like one if there's a couple and they're and someone's abusing the children, they generally don't take the child, isolate them, abuse them, and then bring them back. And then like everybody pretends like everything's fine. And that one children, and just that one person, what they do is they look for a relationship where the other person is also complicit in the abuse. They may not actively like abuse the child or be the heavy, but what they'll do is they'll come in and be the hug giver and the tear wiper, and they'll say, I know it's so hard, but you were being naughty or you weren't
Yeah.
listening, or
Ugh.
and what it is it's also abuse, but it involves the gaslighting.
Mm-mm.
It involves like you have to be complicit with somebody who's in an abusive, who's perpetrating abuse, and you are indeed also part and parcel to that abuse. And these relationships work because both people are broken somehow, and so they
Mm.
feed off of each other, and then they play good cop bad cop, and it
Oh,
works. So I believe that
I believe that
um
too.
I
Oh my
believe
God.
that her partner had to have been, in order for all this to continue to happen, like especially the part that's just gut wrenching is how the boy asked the neighbor to put a box of food outside where he can like get food. It's like, so they were both willingly starving the children, and there were no toys in the house, and it looked like no children lived there. And then the other thing that bothers me about this so much is that they didn't follow up, and my guess is they probably pulled the case files for the children. They probably looked at the environment that the children came from and what the history was with these children. And they probably looked at this couple and said they're model, foster adopt parents. And so they just shelved the report and just figured, because maybe they figured we'll wait until we get a second or third call and then we'll raise the 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 warning. But of course, the kids didn't get a second or third call.
Yeah.
The other thing is, um, that makes me so sad is that, if they had gone much like that Turpin family in was it Southern California, the girl crawled out the window and then flagged down somebody, and it's like, I mean, she was very brave, but didn't they have like 13 children or something like that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the parents were actively starving them, brutalizing them, torturing them, sexually assaulting them. I mean, I just,
What, what
it's
can
like,
I?
and remember those pictures where all the boys had the weird same bowl cut that the
Oh
dad had?
God. Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, like really, if you see this, like you see children that are that size, I don't know. I can't even. The other thing is, like, there had to have been so much psychological, like, trauma for these children because not only is little boy crying and everything's gone viral, with the videos of him crying, but it's like, I mean, say something, you can't tell me those kids, I mean, they're homeschooled, so they have nowhere to go, nobody safe to protect them. And he's holding on to a street performer like,
Hmm.
I mean, that's a serious cry for help. And people are like, "Oh, what a beautiful face." It's just like I can't even.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I try to put myself at one of those festivals or the music festival or the protest where if I were to witness that, it does seem like just a beautiful moment. But if you really look at it, like, why? Well, I'm not saying that kids can't be sensitive, but I mean, his reaction was extreme. You know what I mean? Like, why would a healthy kid, healthy mentally, emotionally, excuse me, physically and emotionally, why would they have that such a, such an emotional reaction
Right.
to hugging someone? But and I don't want to criticize the DeKalbs, um, and I have to give the the woman's father a lot of credit because you said you're talking about the Turpins when that one daughter escaped. Well, Hannah essentially escaped and went to them at 1:30 in the morning, and she says to them, we're being abused, they're racist. um I don't know. Let's just put it out there right now. If this happens, call the police. Don't let that
Yeah.
girl go. Don't let
Yeah.
that girl go
The
and call the
the other
police.
the other thing though is, and I will tell you that it's so like, when we lived in Cupertino, we had neighbors and they had, it was a father and his two children, and then it was his girlfriend and his girlfriend's son, and the son was like 20. And the father's kids were like 10 and 5, and the 5-year-old would cry incessantly. And one day they were outside playing, and the little boy pulled his pant leg up because he sat down and he winced. And we all saw that he had like marks on the backs of his legs that looked, I mean, it was awful.
Oh my God.
It just so happened that one of the people in the duplex community that we lived in, she was a mandatory reporter because she had a position where she had to report if she saw something.
Mhm.
So she did. But because all of our children played together and because all of us were witness to it, the girlfriend, who by the way was a woman my age, um she was arrested when they came out. They did an assessment. I guess it turns out the little boy had been sleeping, had no bed. He was sleeping in a closet on some old like clothing, and
Ugh.
she really had it out for this little boy. And they didn't speak English fluently. So they were able to, like, when she was yelling at him or when she was punishing him, she was speaking another language. So a lot of the neighbors wouldn't understand what was happening or what was being said. I just remember he would cry a lot. And he was being abused and he was not being fed properly. He was really tiny. He was 5, but he was like the size of a 3-year-old. But again, like, sometimes kids are tiny, but they arrested her. They took her away. Apparently, the situation was bad enough that that's the first step. When she spent like a 72-hour weekend or something, or a week or something in jail, when she came home, guess what? All of us who were neighbors whose kids had played with these children, which
Hmm.
was like, 3 or 4 families, we all got this woman's wrath. We got her cold shoulder. We got her, bad behavior. We got her, um, you know, basically taking other people's parking spots, being rude, walking past, And I remember saying to Gabe, I was like, I don't care. I didn't do anything
Yeah, who
wrong. And
cares?
also, I didn't call the authorities, but it doesn't matter. Like,
No,
what
it
she
doesn't
was
matter.
doing was wrong. But the thing that was so sad was she was on probation. She had to take parenting classes. She had to go to classes, she had to do all this stuff. But she came right back from jail and moved in with her boyfriend and his 2 kids, one of which was the kid that she was beating the crap out of. So I got to tell you, I don't have a lot of faith in this system
I
that's
know.
supposed to protect children,
Well,
because
because yeah, go
if
ahead.
I were the dad, I'd have thrown that lady's ass out on the street, and I would have thrown her 20-year-old kid out on the street. Because the other thing was, it was like, I mean, what is he doing with this woman anyway? And then I found out later that I guess he sent the kids off packing to another country where his ex lived, and they went to go live with the. And I just remember thinking, like, so your punishment, kids, for showing the neighbor kids what had happened to your legs, was that now you get sent off packing to live with a parent that you haven't seen since you were 1, and who's probably equally crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening a
Oh,
lot of
God.
times in these situations is the only people who end up getting punished are the children.
Yeah, exactly. Because of course they're going to get it worse after,
Yeah.
right? After she can.
Um,
Yeah,
I,
I just don't know
I,
what to
um,
say.
I, when I was like 25, I lived in an apartment, and one night the girl who lived across the way came and knocked on the door, and she said, I put Sierra down to bed. She never wakes up at night. I'm going to go downtown and pick my boyfriend up. Could you just check on her a couple times? I'm going to leave my door open. We lived in an apartment complex.
Oh,
So I
God.
went so I went in her apartment, locked my apartment up, and went and sat at her kitchen table. And I took whatever work I was working on in there. Well, guess what? She left at 10 o'clock to go pick her boyfriend up. She showed up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, my
And I had to
God.
work the next day. And I just looked at her and I said, I'm not your daycare provider. I have to work tomorrow. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, he was late getting off his shift. And she smelled like she fell into a big old vat of like beer. So a couple of weeks later, she did it again. I came upstairs from doing the laundry. There was a post-it note on my door. Sierra went to
Oh, my
bed.
God.
I'm gonna, and then guess what? It started in that she would go drinking like a couple times a week, wouldn't tell anybody, and she would just leave the baby in bed because she didn't wake up at night. She was 2, by the way. The baby was 2. So finally, she came over and knocked on the door, and I said, "No, I can't watch your kid for you. I have plans. I have to work in the morning." And I said, and remember the last couple of times she had done it, I think the last time she showed up at 5 or 6 in the morning, barely giving me enough time to go home, get showered, and go to work. And so I went
Oh, my
downstairs. I
God.
went downstairs to the manager, who, by the way, lived under me, or under me and to the side of me. I'm pretty sure if she lived under me, she would have evicted me because we were really noisy back then. And she called CPS, and I remember being crushed because a little girl was going to be woken up at whatever, 4 a.m. by a complete stranger, and
Mm,
they were going to put her into protective custody, and she was going to probably have to get in the back of a police car or some caseworker's car, and with a bag of her stuff, and drive somewhere so that she could be safe, and so that she didn't have to worry about her mom and dad going out and drinking themselves silly every night and leaving her by herself in an apartment in a crib.
oh, I know, but
And
yeah, that's so scary. Now,
it was heartbreaking. And of course, again, perfect example, who's the only person who loses in this situation? The 2-year-old.
yeah, yeah, and Did you move, or did that woman know that you did?
Oh, she totally knew, because when
Yeah,
they
because you
went
were the
down to
only
the
one.
door to pick her up, she knew I had told somebody. She knew I had gone straight to the property manager, because I had told her, I said, I'm not your daycare solution.
Yeah, no kid. Oh my God.
And she would
Well,
say, well, I'm going to go anyway, but if you want to, could you check in on her a couple times? And I'm like, first of all, she doesn't even know me. So she wakes up in the middle of the night,
it's a
scared and
stranger.
alone. A complete stranger is going to be like, hi, Sierra, how you doing? You know,
Unbelievable.
it was unbelievable. And I remember I was like 26, I think, at the time. Now, remember, I didn't have children until I was 35. There's a reason why. I got to tell you that there was plenty of experiences like this where people, I remember babysitting for another lady who was supposed to come home at 7. She would leave for work at 10 p.m. and come home at 7. Well, I remember waking up at like 8 on the sofa and realizing, oh, mommy didn't come home last night.
Oh
I also
my
had a
God.
question for that lady. She had 2 boys. I mean, luckily the boys knew who I was, but I
But
was
still,
only I think I was 21 or 22 at this point. I mean, I just think about it's like I get it, like a lot of stuff, but it turns out she had met somebody at work and she'd go home with the guy, and then one thing would lead to another, and sometimes she would rush in the house and go, I fell asleep at his place and I forgot to set an alarm. I'm like, again, I'm not these children's mother.
yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Well, the whole system, getting back to this story, so the father of the next door neighbor, he called, and then eventually the neighbor, Bruce, called after 10 times of giving them food. I think maybe after the first time I would have called, but um, like I said, no shade to them, but nothing happened after that. And then that's when they took off because they knew they were getting a lot of it. They knew that the jig was up, right? So that's when they went on the road.
Well, I will
So
say this, I'm sure that I mean that this really I'm again, I mean I don't know, but I would like to think that at least in Westland, Oregon, or wherever this happened, the last place they lived, or whenever that this was a cautionary tale to all of the workers who work for the, child placement services or family services or CPS or whatever it's called, that they sat them down and said, this is, a dereliction of duty. We need to take care of children better than this. We need to safeguard their safety. We need to like make sure that if we get one call home visit, if somebody had gone in that house, they would have seen that there was 2 board games and 1 puzzle, and that there were no beds and no furniture for these children.
and they were all in the one room, six
Yeah.
kids, and some of them much older than the younger ones.
Well,
Um,
but remember, they weren't feeding them, so they were probably very emaciated.
it's heartbreaking. I mean, and how do you? Again, not comparing children to dogs, but only in the sense that they can't care for themselves. It's like, when you adopt out an animal, like you don't really know. You can go and check the house to make sure the yard is enclosed and all that, but you have no idea when the door closes what the intentions are of the owners. And it's the same with the parents. Like, how do you know when people, well, you don't know. That's what I'm saying. When people are adopting just for the money or for other, less than altruistic reasons, because they are obviously doing it for the money. So to have to, well, that was the whole thing. Like they adopted 6 children in such a short time. Should that have been looked at? I don't
Yeah.
know, I don't know. And then, these babies came from, 3 of them had come from a mother that was a drug addict. So they were put in the care of the their aunt, the mom's sister. And then one night, the aunt had to work an extra shift. And so she reached out to the mother, her sister, the mother of those kids, and asked her to watch them, which was not a good move because then the caseworker showed up and found the biological mom who was the drug addict with the kids. So the kids were taken away. Anyway, it's just a whole complicated system of shit. It's a
Yeah,
complicated system of shit. I mean, I don't have the answers.
for lack of a better explanation. You're
Yeah.
right.
I mean, yeah, it just adoption, you know, the foster agency, and then the adoption agency, and then the CPS, and then the police. Like, I don't know if they're passing the buck, or if they have limitations on what they can do, or if they're handcuffed or boxed in by processes and procedures, or they're just too overloaded with caseloads. But this is horrendous that this is happening to
Yeah.
kids. You know, I mean, they're running next door and going, don't send me back there, can you put food out by the fence? I mean, that is just, what the fuck, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, you know what would be great would be to get somebody who has either worked for DHS, I'm sorry, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, someone who has worked for CPS, or social services, or a social worker or a caseworker, and maybe interview them so that we could ask these questions. Because I got to tell you, I know a couple people who've done this job.
Oh, well, let's
I
have them on.
I know at least three people who've done this job. So
Hmm.
I would be interested. My guess, Cheryl, is that they're going to say the caseload is astronomical. We are only so many people doing this job, and shit falls through the cracks. And sadly, I think that's what's going to happen because, I mean, think about, remember, we talked about this in a previous podcast, how, at the end of the day, you can only do as much stuff as you can do. And then sometimes shit has to wait until the next day. But in the case of these children, that shit was the difference between life and death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not always as simple as that. Sometimes it's far more complicated when you're dealing with, obviously, this kind of mental, whatever, this kind of torture and the problems that the moms had. And they obviously, had this whole like, you know, uh, obsession. And that's the other thing that made me sick was how they would drag this kid out,
As a
just
prop,
during the
is what
Black
they say.
Lives Matter movement, as a
Mm-hmm.
prop, which is so reprehensible. It's like, oh,
Ugh.
and the other thing is all it does is it reinforces that white savior mentality. It's like here's two white moms saving these poor black kids. It just makes me
Mm-hmm.
nauseous.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know what? Like, how dare they? Especially since what they were doing by bringing them out and trotting them around and trying to make them look
Mm-hmm.
like props. That's exactly what, I mean, the opposite of what that whole movement was about. It's
Exactly.
just
Exactly.
nauseating.
Yeah. And also what I take away from this is how they used Facebook and other, you know, social
Oh
media
yeah.
to portray this perfect family. You
Yeah.
know, there's so
Oh
many
yeah.
stories like
It's
that,
all
like Gabby
fake.
Petito.
Fake. It's all fake. Fake, fake, fake. It's like
Yeah.
I can edit the hell out of everything to make stuff look really, really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So while you're looking at Facebook and Instagram and all this other stuff, and you're thinking, why isn't my life that glorious? Just keep in mind that it could be all fake. It could be a ruse. Um, but yeah. Well, this was a bummer.
Yeah, it
I'm
was.
sorry.
No, it was I appreciate all the research you put into it, but yeah, I mean, it makes me really hot that I there are a few things that really make my blood boil, and one is when there's violence perpetrated against children because children are innocent and
Yeah.
they're and I I understand that when people are when people don't get a chance when they're children, a lot of times they grow up and then they also perpetuate violence against children because children are in the most vulnerable groups of people. So
Yeah.
they're the easiest to perpetrate these things against. But that having been said, I have a lot of respect for people who recognize that they have limitations and then they decide, okay, I'm not going to have children. I'm not going to work with children. I'm not going to be around children.
Mm,
I find that people who are very cowardly and people who are like the lowest um of the low are the ones who then go on to have kids or to be around children or work with children and then perpetuate abuse.
Yeah.
And you know, I got to be honest, people who are doing that know who they are,
Yeah.
cuz you can tell the difference between um, you know, when you're doing something right and when you're doing something wrong, cuz like my husband always says, the proof is in the pudding, right?
This is true. Yes, yes.
So,
Oh,
when those kids grow up, and that's why and that's not, I mean, obviously it was a heinous crime and horrible and all that, but they knew that when those kids got to a certain age, they would no longer have control over what they said and did.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's literally what they were doing, was they were controlling the narrative. They did not want the bad press on what shitty moms they were and how horrible they were. And guess what? Nobody likes to think of, I realize nobody says, people will say deadbeat dads, guys who just like, kick out some sperm and then wander off, or, some guy who like, maybe, whatever, he's like I was talking about how the girls in my religious community growing up would get pregnant and they would have to stay back and have to raise the kids and be ostracized and treated like lepers in the community, and no dude would look at him twice. But the guys got to roll off and get married and have glamorous lives, and they never had any repercussions like that. It was always the whispered talks like, oh, so and so had a child out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about the dude? Did he
Right.
have a child out of wedlock? How come he went to France and became someone fancy?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's so, it used to really piss me off. But I also remember thinking I would die 1,000 deaths before I have a child out of wedlock, because look what happens to them.
Yeah.
They basically get turned into, the town pariah. Nobody wants to be seen with her. You know why? She's a fallen woman. So I just, yeah, I went off on a tangent.
It's okay. No, this evokes, very high emotions.
Yeah,
It's just
it really
very well.
does.
Yeah, and I'm really bummed now, even though I'm the one that picked this.
Good job,
Hmm.
Cheryl. Good job, Cheryl.
Good job in picking
Anyway,
this. Pat
um,
on the back.
what those moms did was a crime, but you know what else is a crime?
What's that, Joy?
That we are out of time.
Oh man, yeah, we are. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and don't complicate your day.
All creativity, commentary, and opinions in this podcast belong to Cheryl and Joy. Music composed and mixed by Gabe McKeon. Logo and merch created and managed by Kevin Callan. Podcast editing and advertising by Joy McKeon. Legal representation provided by John Bolchezik. Please like, subscribe, follow, and listen. You can visit us at Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and YouTube. And you can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com.